its way forward. We at Geo Institute are honored and humbled to have had participation both in numbers and quality at this masterclass. We have received an overwhelming response of more than 1,000 participants from eminent stakeholders from across the industry, academia, and government. This also includes representation from 25 states, 4 union territories, and 21 countries across the world. In today's day and age, societal changes are reflected in all elements of popular culture, like movies, books, music, TV, etc. And often advertising is a good reflection of this changing society. Media captures these changes through content, and brands reflect these changes through various narratives they create to engage, involve, and motivate their consumers. Our speaker today is Dr. Ambi Parameshwaran, who is a brand coach, brand strategist, and founder of brandbuilding.com, a brand advisory company. Dr. Ambi brings with him over 35 years of experience in marketing, sales, and advertising in companies such as Rediffusion YNR, Boots Company, UDI Yellow Pages, and FCB Ulka Advertising. He has helped build numerous brands including Digene, Brufane, Santoor Soap, Sundrop Cooking Oil, and many others. He served as VP and then as CEO of FCB Ulka from 2003 to 2013. Dr. Ambi has been contributing articles to business publications and has conducted branding workshops for many organizations and industry bodies like CII, FICCI, AIMA, etc. He has spoken at TEDx and at Kellogg India Summit at Northwestern University and Cornell University. He is an adjunct professor of marketing at SPJ IMR and a guest faculty at IMC, IMA, MICA, and ISB. Dr. Ambi served as the president of AAAI and the president of Ad Club Bombay. He served on the board of governors of IIM Calcutta from 2007 to 2017. He is an independent director on the board of Galaxy Surfactant, THG Publishing, Cube Cinema Systems, Rediff.com, and others. He received the Distinguished Alumnus Award from IIT Madras in April 2009 and from IIM Calcutta in November 2018. He has a PhD from Mumbai University, an AMP from Harvard Business School, and executive coaching certification from CFI. In addition, Dr. Ambi is also the author of 10 books, including the recently launched 10th book, Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection, in September 2020. With the above, we would like to welcome Dr. Ambi and request him to start the masterclass on branding in a changing socio-cultural landscape. For the audience, don't forget to leave your questions in the Q&A section during this presentation so that we can address them thereafter. Over to you, Dr. Ambi.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasad. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me first thank Dr. Deepak Jain. It was a pleasant surprise one night when I was binge watching, I think, Suitable Boy on my TV, that I get a call from Professor Jain, saying, and I almost dropped the phone. Thought it was the wrong number, but then he said, no, I am speaking. This is Deepak Jain, and am I speaking to him? I said, yes, it is. So he invited me to do this. So thank you very much, Dr. Jain, for inviting me to do this. It's an honor. It's a pleasure always, to see your passion and your commitment. I wish I can imbibe some of that passion and commitment as I move forward. So thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for the team at Geo for putting this whole thing together. Thank you, Dr. Palak Seth and Prasad, for that warm introduction. So let me just start moving, because I was told I have 1 hour and I have a lot to tell in that 1 hour. So let me start by saying that this is the topic: branding in a changing socio-cultural landscape. Brands don't live in isolation. Brands live in a world which has got multiple forces, operating on it. There is environmental forces, ecological forces, sociological forces, economic forces, and brands live in this ecosystem. And what do we mean by socio-cultural trend? Socio-cultural trends are really culture-specific sociological tendencies which modify our value system, the moral, the way we think and behave. Sociocultural trends are ways for individuals in society to adapt to megatrends. I know that uh, the audience here is both a mix of professors, and I even saw some vice chancellors attending, and of course there are some students as well attending this. So this may come as a mouthful for the students. Don't run away. It'll all become clear as I go on, take you through what I mean by these socio-cultural trends. So let's pull back. India uh, is a country which has a strongly changing society, changing consumers, and changing brands. Uh, we got our independence in 1947, and it's very interesting that today, 26th of November, 71 years ago, was when the Constituent Assembly passed the Constitution of India. So this is the day that our founding fathers brought the Constitution into the country. Uh, you know, 71 years ago. Then came the creation of linguistic states. And then for several years, we had a socialism aura running this country. We had the Green Revolution, we had network television coming in, but all the changes started speeding up in after the 1991 liberalization. The earlier 1985 was a bit of a liberalization, not strong enough. 91 was when it was really opened up. Suddenly, we as Indians suddenly started seeing multiplicity of products. From one single car or two single cars, two-wheelers, telecom, durables, satellite TV, and now of course internet. And there are 600 million users today, and and we are on a geo platform. So I should say this, that thanks to geo, we are the leaders, the global leaders in per capita video consumption. uh, all this changes happened literally at supersonic speed, especially in the last 10 years. So we moved from a command and control economy where you had to have a waiting list, of many years before you could get a telephone line or get a scooter. Today, everything is available on tap. And this change in products, in availability of products and societal change gets captured in popular culture. Rachel Dyer has written several books on how Bollywood, Hindi films have reflected the changing mood of the nation. The whole concept of the angry young man in the late 70s and 80s was triggered by high inflation, a huge amount of unemployment, and that led to a lot of protests, and that led to the manifestation of the angry young man in the movies. Or later, the sugar boy Shah Rukh Khan was built by Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, because that was a time when Indians were making their mark as a global diaspora, right? Indians were going abroad and they were coming back, and they were no longer feeling so ashamed that they are Indian. So movies have reflected the change in society. Uh, but what about advertising? That's where my job comes in. So I've been living with this problem of looking at advertising for many, many years. I spent, as Prasad said, out of my 41 years, I spent probably 30 plus years in advertising, working on numerous brands. And so 4 years ago, precisely, I published this book called Nawab Nudes and Noodles. So over the next 1 hour, 40 or 50 minutes, I'm going to take you through how Indian society has changed and how brands and advertising has reflected this change. Uh, so the book is an attempt to map changing society through the lens of advertising, right? So professors here attending this, media professors, don't need to know who's Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan was a professor at University of Toronto, and he's written seminal books, including terms today we use as common language, like the global village was coined by him, or medium is the message was a term coined by him. He said that historians and archaeologists will one day discover that the ads of our times are the richest and most faithful reflections any society ever made about a whole range of activities. Now, if you want to study how people lived 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, you do digging and you pull out some, pottery or some pans or some things and say, this is the Iron Age, this is the Bronze Age. How are people going to look at society 1,000 years from today? And Marshall McLuhan is very perceptive, and he says, if they look at advertising which took place 1,000 years ago, that will tell them how society lived. Uh, Marshall McLuhan, uh, in fact, as a trivia, Marshall McLuhan also was there in the Woody Allen film Annie Hall, where he plays himself. So those of you Woody Allen fans may want to go back and check it out. Right, that's Marshall McLuhan. And the other rather tongue-in-the-cheek comment comes from Kurt Vonnegut, who's one of my favorite American humor writers, who says that what passes as culture in my head is really a bunch of commercials. Now, why does it make sense to look at social change through advertising? And I'll probably, this question will be answered over the next 40 minutes, but I think advertising often reflects change. Advertising sometimes nudges change, and advertising often predicts change. So if you look at the 1960s and 70s, this was advertising of India. You had probably one airline company, Air India. You had a couple of brands of refrigerators, two brands of cars, maybe a few brands of television, telephone lines were on waiting list. You had to wait for sometimes months to get a landline. Dalda was our replacement for ghee. Those of you, again, interested in trivia, Dalda is a brand owned by Lever Brothers, Hindustan Lever at that time. It's actually a brand called Dada, D-A-D-A, which Lever Brothers bought, and they launched it in India, and they added the L in the middle. The L in the middle actually stands for levers, right? So this was India of 60s and 70s, and this dramatically changed in 2010. Today we are talking of, a mobile phone in millions and millions of people's hands. Probably 70% of Indians have a mobile phone. We're talking of credit card. Credit card penetration has gone up to probably 80%. You have, rocket, what do you call, speed trains coming. And currently in this pandemic, we've got millions of students attending classrooms from home. But we also have our problems. We have probably 30% of our children go to sleep every night without enough food in their stomach. Our education system is broken, and I hope the new education policy gets going on that front and tries to fix that. Of course, there are other schisms in the society, which is way beyond my remit. But my book, Nawab Noodle, is not a history book, because I'm not a historian. It's not a history book. What it does is really looks at advertising through various lenses. How is advertising looked at men? How is it looked at women? How is it looked at marriages? How is it presented old age? How is it presented children? How is it presented food? And from there, hopefully, we will draw some lessons on how society changes, how it is probably going to continue changing, and how brands will have to reflect this change in society. So as we start this journey, uh, let me start making a sensational statement that pressure cooker defined true love in India. And the brand which did that is a brand called Prestige. Prestige had this advertising which ran in 1983, 84, 85. And this presented the humble pressure cooker as a sign of true love. Now, some of you, I think almost 30% of the audience are from abroad. So you may not understand the ad, but I will try and explain once the ad is over. So just watch it. It's fun.
आइए जनाब आइए क्या क्या चाहिए जी वो हाँ एक प्रेशर कुकर चाहिए प्रेशर कुकर क्यों नहीं आप अपनी बीवी से कितना प्यार करते हैं ये तो बताइए क्या मतलब है आपका मतलब है मान लीजिए आप अपनी बीवी को सिर्फ थोड़ा सा चाहते हैं अगर तो कोई भी चलेगा प्रेशर कुकर अगर थोड़ा ज्यादा लगाव है जनाब तो थोड़ा अच्छा प्रेशर कुकर लेके देंगे आप अगर अपनी जान से भी ज्यादा प्यारी है इनकी जान तो फिर ये 100% सुरक्षित प्रेस्टीज लेके देंगे श्रीमान लेकिन प्रेस्टीज ही क्यों क्योंकि सिर्फ इसी में है अनोखा गास्केट रिलीज सिस्टम जिससे जरा भी खतरा नहीं रहता ये देखिए ये इस तरह काम करता है। अगर कुछ दाने वेट वेंट में फंस जाएं, तो साधारण प्रेशर कुकर में जरूरत से ज्यादा प्रेशर जमा होने से खतरा पैदा हो सकता है। लेकिन नए प्रेस्टीज में सेफ्टी प्लग कैसा भी लगा हो, अनोखे गास्केट रिलीज सिस्टम की वजह से आप सुरक्षित रूप से बाहर निकल जाती है। जी, तो प्रेस्टीज ही दीजिए। जो बीवी से सचमुच करते प्यार, वो प्रेस्टीज से कैसे करें इनकार?
So the ad really says, you know, the shopkeeper is selling these cookers, which we use in India. It's ubiquitous. In fact, I think 85% of all homes in India have a pressure cooker, thanks to advertising by Prestige and another brand called Hawkins. What he's saying is, if you truly love your wife, jo biwi se kare pyar, if you truly love your wife, you will buy her a Prestige pressure cooker. So Prestige is really competition to De Beers. You know, it's about true love. So Prestige is about true love in India. Uh, this was 1985. You know, when I pulled out this ad, and I thought this was probably 1960s or 70s. No, this is not 1960s or 70s. This is 1985, right? So if this was one kind of advertising which showed marital love, let me show a different one. This is an ad for a cigarette called Will's Filter from ITC. And this particular ad says made for each other, and the husband and wife are reading this joke book. This particular ad ran in all the leading magazines of India: Illustrated Weekly, India Today. It ran the same way for 9 years. You may ask, why did it run for 9 years? And that's a typical question I use in my classes. Uh, and a lot of funny answers come in. But the real answer is this ad actually worked. It worked like gangbusters. The brand kept growing, kept growing, kept growing. At one point of time, I remember a director of ITC telling me that Will's Filter makes more profit than the whole company. You can imagine, obviously, they had many divisions were making losses, and Will's Filter was making 140% of the profits of that company. Now, not only did they do this advertising, they also had this very interesting concept called the made for each other concept, where you had to compete in this across the country, and you get selected as the made for each other couple, and the made for each other couple are then awarded this big prize, which, as you can imagine, those days it was a ambassador car, right? And this contest ran for many years, uh, and it was a very popular context. And so this was marriage, right? Buying a pressure cooker for your wife, or blowing smoke into her eyes and watch her cry with joy. But this changed, right? This changed in the year 2014 with a brand which presented marriage from a very different context. So let me play this ad. This is a bit in Hindi, but a lot of it is in English.
चॉइस नहीं है, तुम्हें ये करना ही पड़ेगा।
लेकिन प्रिया, इतने कम टाइम में ये सब कैसे होगा?
Sorry guys, you'll have to manage it. Okay? You should start now. Hi, how's it going?
Okay,
कुछ हो तो कॉल करना।
okay.
Bye. Bye. अच्छा रोहित, मैं घर पहुंच रही हूँ। तुम डिनर में क्या खाओगे? Okay.
टाइम लगेगा। बॉस ने बहुत काम दिया है। बाय।
बॉस को बोलो कि वाइफ बुला रही है।
तुम भी बोलो ना बॉस को।
जल्दी आना, वेट करूंगी।
कभी कभी बस एक स्मार्टफोन लाइफ में थोड़ा मैजिक ला सकता है। तभी तो खास स्मार्टफोन्स के लिए बना है एयरटेल, द स्मार्टफोन नेटवर्क।
Look at the depiction of the husband-wife relationship 1985 to this ad in 2015. In this ad, the lady is now more educated. She is the husband's boss. But unfortunately, this ad got trolled in social media because uh, you cannot satisfy the trolls, right? So they criticized the ad because they said, why is she going home and cooking? Why are you putting her in a gender specific role? But I think the ad did a great job of demonstrating the product, showed a changing society. And then when she went home and cooked, she was not sweating with a pressure cooker. She was actually dressed very casually and using modern kitchen aids, and she was actually probably enjoying the cooking. So changes have happened in marriages, and I think more changes will happen in India as we go forward. And I think I use this example like in India, grocery shopping is still very much a woman's job. Cooking is very much a woman's job. Dropping children to school, picking them up is a woman's job. And this is going to change. Uh, and I expect, the American numbers, these are American numbers, where grocery shopping is 49% is done by the male, cooking 43% is done by the male, and dropping kids and picking up kids from school is again 39% of male. So, and when I do these talks, I can actually predict the age of the audience by how many people in the audience, how many men in the audience know how to cook. If it's a young audience, almost all the boys know some level of cooking. But if it is an audience which is 50 plus or my age, 60 plus, then very few hands go up. And I think my advice to the young boys is that if you want to find a life partner, learn to cook, right? Learn to cook. So let's go from marriage to old age. Old age in India was about popping pills and going on pilgrimages, and kind of waiting for salvation to be born again. And a particular ad actually made a nice caricature of this, an old ad, uh, which had, and there are many ads like this.
जब मैं छोटा लड़का था बड़ी शरारत करता था मेरी चोरी पकड़ी जाती जब रोशन होता बाजार अब मैं बिल्कुल बूढ़ा हूँ गोली खाकर जीता हूँ लेकिन आज भी घर के अंदर रोशनी की बाजार रोशनी की दुनिया का सरताज बाजार.
So it's about old age, it's about pilgrimage and drinking some potions and having some pills, right? This started changing about a decade ago. And one of the nice ads which came out at that point of time was this old lady is sitting and using a sewing machine. She's stitching something, and this old man comes and puts a little box in front of her. She opens the box, and it's a diamond ring. And so the old lady asks, a diamond ring at this age? And the old man replies, and that's in Hindi. It's almost poetic. He tells her, the diamond doesn't know your age, so why are you worried? This actually was an ad for an insurance company, which said that if you save enough money, you can actually live a very comfortable old age life. You don't need to keep thinking of only pilgrimages and pills. Or this ad, which was actually a man is in the morning, he's come home from his morning walk and he's packing his bag, and his wife was asking him, you just came back from your holiday, and why are you packing your bag again? He says, no, I want to go to Calcutta. So she says, why do you want to go to Calcutta? Who's there? My walking friend Sharma, his sister's granddaughter is getting married. So wife says, your walking friend, sister's granddaughter getting married in Kolkata, and you have to go? You have nothing better to do? And the old man replies, no, I have nothing better to do. So advertising today, at least financial products, are presenting old age in India to be a lot nicer than probably what it is going to be. A lot of us in advertising wear this pink tinted glasses and say, look, if you save enough money, you'll actually have a pretty enjoyable old age. Compared to the generation earlier or the previous generation, today's people who are hitting their 60 are probably smart enough to have saved enough money to buy a house, maybe go on a holiday every year, compared to the previous generation, which had to depend on their children to look after them and pay for them. So that has changed. But today, the old people have a different set of worries, which is what's going to happen when I fall ill and what's going to happen when I become invalid. And those are problems which advertising is yet to address, let alone solve. So we looked at marriage, we looked at old age. Now let's go to one of my favorite sections, which is kids. And those people who will go and look at ads abroad, in especially Europe, and you come and look at ads in India, you'll be actually blown away by the number of kids in Indian advertising. We've had this drink called Complan, which had these two kids, boy and a girl, saying, I'm a Complan girl, I'm a Complan boy. Both of them went on to become very big film stars, and the youngsters here watching this will be able to tell what are the names of those two film stars. And of course, Rasna, which is a soft drink concentrate, had this very cute girl, the brand which I worked on for some time. Sundrop had that kid dressed in a yellow suit, doing cartwheels in giant sized puris. Now, my favorite ad, Indian ad featuring a child, is the one behind this black box. So let me play that.
अरे बबलू, यहाँ क्या कर रहे हो? सब गुस्सा करते हैं, मैं घर छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ। मगर घर में तो मम्मी है, गर्मा गर्म जलेबियाँ बनाई है। जलेबी? तो क्या तय किया आपने? जाना तो है, मगर हाँ, मगर 20-25 साल बाद अनोखी शुद्धता, अनोखा असर।
This is very popularly known as the Jalebi ad, and this ad celebrated its silver jubilee a couple of years ago, and I met the writer Acharya Jagdish Acharya, who wrote the script. And apparently, when they wrote the script, the food item they had in mind was not a jalebi; it was a kachori. But while shooting the ad, they realized that the kid is not going to come home for a kachori; he'll come home for a jalebi. Jalebi being a sweet dish. Uh, this ad has this kid running away from home, and there is this old man who spots the child in the railway station, and he says, uh, your mom is making jalebis, and the kid says, okay, I'll go home and have the jalebi. I'll not run away today. When I wrote the fact that this old man is a postman, the uh, editor of my book said that, how do you know he's a postman? And I had to explain to her this whole thing about semiotics, that a person in a small town who's dressed in a khaki uniform, who has a cycle, is probably someone like a postman. And the fact that he knows the child, Bablu, and Bablu knows him as Ramu Kaka, again is symbolic of a small city where everyone knows everyone, and the postman actually knows everyone in the city. Right? The other, today we talk of brands and storytelling and content marketing. And I think this is a great example of, within 30 seconds, such a wonderful story has been told. And when I ask this question, the child has run away, but the parents are not panicking. They're not running to the police station to complain. No, she's making jalebi. She's making a sweet dish. Why? The fact probably is that this kid runs away regularly, and when he comes home, he's hungry, and therefore they have to make something to keep him happy. So it's a great ad. And the product is at the center of it. The Dara cooking oil is right at the center of it. So and we've had multiple ads like this, which show little kids in India, being used to sell cooking oil, to sell fruit juices, to sell fruit drinks. But the way we see children in Indian ads is also changing. And let me play an ad and explain that ad.
मेरे बेटे को जीत की आदत तब लगेगी जब वो मुझे हराएगा, तब नहीं जब मैं उसे जीतने दूंगी। आखिर आदतें ना एक दिन में बनती हैं, ना आसानी से, और ये बच्चों को घर बैठे नहीं सिखाया जाता। तो जिस दिन वो मुझे हराएगा मैं जीत जाऊंगी। सिर्फ एक माँ अच्छी आदतों की अहमियत समझती है, इसलिए मैं उसे रोज बॉर्नवीटा देती हूँ।
So we saw children who are nice, sweet, kind of children, but this is a different kind of a child. He is different because his mother is very different, right? And this is a kind of an example of a tiger mom who's pushing the child. And what she says is that I'm running with him every day, and the day he beats me, that is the day I win. And I talk to bright young students and I ask them in class, saying, look, how many of you have a tiger mom? A few hands go up. But the reality is, if you're studying in a premium educational institution like what Geo Institute is going to be, chances are you have a tiger mom. You have a mom who's like pushing you, cajoling you, and also holding your hand when you're feeling down. And I think this whole tiger mom thing is come to India in a big way. Parents are involved in the education of the child, and I think that's what brands are reflecting, that the new paradigm in bringing up children is not just about giving them a toffee or giving them a sweet, but it's got about pushing them and helping them strive higher and higher. And that's a new paradigm for bringing up children in this country. Now, we looked at marriage, we looked at old age, looked at children. Let's look at men. uh, we've had a surfeit of macho men, and this is a very famous film star called Vinod Khanna modeling for a soap. We had macho men having bath in a soap called Lifebuoy. We had macho men smoking cigarettes, and this again is a very famous film star. The young people here may recognize him and will also know his son very well. Uh, a cigarette called Charminar, and of course we had a man dressed in a underwear fighting baddies. So this was men. Men in India were supposed to be very strong, macho, smoking cigarettes, kicking the bad guys. But that changed in 2005 with the launch of a brand called Fair and Handsome from a company called Imami. They went out there and they presented that, you men want to become fair, uh, use this fairness cream. And the fact is, this opened up a whole floodgate of men's cosmetics. So when we used to go and do these, immersions in small town homes, if you find 3 or 4 uh, ladies' cosmetics in a house, chances are you will find 3 or 4 men's cosmetics. You will definitely find a deo, you will find a face wash, you will find a fairness cream, you will find a hair gel. And now, even if you have a beard, there are multiple cosmetics for the beard, right? There is a beard softening oil and beard fragrancing oil and stuff like that. So men who are actually macho have become men who moisturize. And I believe Indian men are the most threatened species because they are under pressure from multiple fronts. Their wives are no longer ready to listen to them. They become more vocal. They become more educated. So they cannot, do the shush, I'll buy you a pressure cooker story anymore. That's not going to work. Their parents are making demands of them. Their children are making demands of them. So the poor men are the most squeezed from all sides, right? So what do? They buy Fair and Handsome and they apply it on them. At least they'll look fairer for a tougher time ahead. So poor men. So let's go from men to a different topic. So let's look at celebrations. In India, we've had Diwali, which is our national festival. We only have one national festival, but we have 2 national celebrations. And you may be thinking I'm referring to Holi, I'm referring to uh, New Year, I'm referring to something else. Well, no, I'm referring to a very different celebration which we do across the country, which is wedding.
सुनिए लड़की के माँ बाप आए हैं।
नमस्कार। बारात ठीक 8 बजे पहुंच जाए। पर हम आपसे एक बात कहना तो भूल ही गए। घबराइए नहीं, हमें कुछ नहीं चाहिए। हम इतना चाहते हैं कि आप बारातियों का स्वागत पान पराग से कीजिए।
ओह, पान पराग! हमें क्या मालूम आप भी पान पराग के शौकीन हैं। ये लीजिए पान पराग।
पान पराग।
Okay, so that ad is my favorite wedding ad, which shows the parents of the bridegroom visiting the parents of the bride and making a demand. And what do they demand? They demand this mouth freshener called Pan Parag, and the characters are played by very famous Indian Bollywood actors. Now, Indian brands have used weddings to sell products. You had suitings, you had suitcases, you had mouth fresheners, you had hair oil being sold on the wedding platform, and the same with the Diwali platform, right? Uh, but that has changed. In the last 10 years, you're suddenly seeing new festivals being unearthed. You know, there's a festival called Akshay Tritiya, which 15 years ago, no one probably knew about it. Now it's become a national festival that even a Korean brand called Hyundai is telling consumers to buy a car for the Akshaya Tritiya. Or a fairness, cream is selling itself for this, Karwa Chauth festival, which again, no brand probably thought of advertising 15 years ago for a Karwa Chauth festival, which is supposed to be a fast which the wife keeps for the long life of her husband. And now, as a kind of a twist, even husbands are keeping a full day fast for the long life of their wives. And new metaphors are coming in terms of celebration and in terms of religious topics. So let me play an ad which ran uh, on YouTube, I think.
Doctor, you know, emergency. डॉक्टर नहीं आ रही। वो भी तैयार करो, आप रुकिए। सब खैरियत? डॉक्टर, कल तो सब छट के नहीं माँ जी, ये तो मेरा फर्ज था। पुत्र, आज अगर हमारे साथ ही इसकी क्या जरूरत थी? पहली बार सजाया है, शायद कोई कमी रह गई हो।
नेकी के इस त्योहार को सबके साथ मनाइए। बिग बाजार, making India beautiful.
So brands are pulling out festivals to use for helping consumers to consume. And I have a theory that Indians are used to saving 30%, 35% of what they earn. How do you help them get over the guilt of spending the money? And I think brands are trying to get them to get over the guilt by saying it is Akshay Tritiya, go buy a car. It is Akshay Tritiya, go buy a new refrigerator, etc., etc., etc. And I think this will continue as we start becoming more and more consumption oriented society. So we saw marriage, we saw men, we saw children, we saw old age. Now let's change track and let's look at jobs. How jobs have been portrayed in this country and how brands have used jobs to sell itself. So let me talk about this brand called Wheel. In India, we've had multiple brands using jobs for selling itself. Right? Wheel brand from Unilever was launched 25 years ago, or more than that, like 30 years ago. And the first ad showed this man coming home, and he tells his wife, I didn't get this job. And he takes off his shirt and flings it at her and tells her that, my shirt was dirty. At which stage she doesn't know what to do. She looks up at the sky, and from the sky comes a voice, what we call the voice of God in advertising, saying, Ab pesh hai, now you have wheel with the power of lemon. And she uses it to wash his clothes become white, he goes and gets a job. So a detergent can get you a job, right? Or this ad from Fair and Lovely, now of course the name is changed to Glow and Lovely. The husband and wife are middle class, they're sitting at home in the kitchen. The daughter comes home and The husband and wife look at her, and the father asks, "Did you get the job?" And the daughter says no. And the father makes this so-called absolutely uh, politically incorrect statement. He says, "Kash beta hota." I wish I had a son and not a daughter. And this girl is in tears. She meets her neighborhood Didi, neighborhood sister, who then gives her these 2 tubes of Fair and Lovely. She applies this Fair and Lovely, becomes very fair, and then she lands this job as an air hostess, and she takes her father to a 5-star hotel for a coffee. And the man is very proud. He has a cup of coffee, and then he asks her, "Aur ek cup chai milega kya beta?" And he asks her, "Can I get another cup of tea?" In Hindi, you use beta for both man and child. So that's this actually worked brilliantly well for the brand, because Fair and Lovely had got stuck in this metaphor of you become fair to get married, you become fair to get married, and that story was running thin. And they changed the narrative by saying you become fair to get a job, and this gave the brand a new, kind of tailwind, and the brand kind of took off. But activists have gone very heavily against this ad. This was rated by one of the blogs as the worst ad of the decade. But that raises a question, and I know this is not the forum. Think, what's the role of advertising? Am I here to do a social service? Should I change society, or do I reflect society? And I like the audience to live with that thought, and probably we can talk at the end. We can have some interesting questions around that. So this is women. And of course, there was another ad where the woman is getting ready to go for a job interview. She applies this talc all over her, just Pond's Dream Flower talc. She goes and gets a job. But so you use the talc, get a job. Use a detergent, get a job. Use a cream, get a job. But this changed. In the year 2005 came an ad which kind of turned it upside down.
Sir, report 1. Report 2. But sir,
Shut up.
Sir, hotel reservation desk on line 2.
Yes, I would like to book a table for 2. Sure, sir. Whole side. Your name, sir? Hari Sadhu. What, sir? Hari Sadhu.
Sir, may I? Yes, write down. Hari Sadhu. H for Hitler, A for arrogant, R for rascal, I for idiot. That's right. Now write Sadhu. S for
shameless.
So this is the new India, where people, I'm sure, students graduating from Geo Institute will be like this. They will probably have 2 job offers in their pocket all the time. So people don't quit jobs; they quit bosses. And this is a very bold advertising done by Naukri. Our agency did this campaign at that time, and this is the new India. This is the top 10% of India, which is extremely highly qualified, extremely highly talented, and they can drop and go to another company if they don't like the boss. It's not that the boss should be sugary sweet, but he should not be as obnoxious as Mr. Hari Sadhu. But when I talk to HR managers, they also have a quandary. On the one hand, the top 10% of the company has multiple job offers. But on the other hand, every time they advertise for a low-level job, they get thousands of applications. So the HR person in a company has to juggle this quandary that there's huge number of unemployed people, semi-skilled people, partially skilled people who clamor for the job. At the other end, there are people, talented youngsters, talented managers who can get a job drop of a hat. So advertising has tried to present both sides of this job equation over the last 30, 40 years. Now from jobs, let's go to uh, the Nawabs. In India, we've had, Nawabs modeling for suiting. There was Nawab Pataudi who modeled for Gwalior suitings. Raymond had the campaign called The Complete Man. And of course, Vimal, which is owned by Reliance Industries, did some really pioneering work in suiting marketing. And the guy you see there is Masaba Gupta's father, Viv Richards. Uh, And I think Vimal was probably the first brand in India to use cricketers for suiting advertising. Today, of course, cricketers can advertise anything under the sun, including PhD degrees and stuff like that. But from hair oil to PhD degrees, today cricketers are doing it. But Vimal was one of the early pioneers in using a cricketer to model for suitings. And of course, I have got a picture of a very popular Indian film star, Salman Khan, Salman Bhai, as we call him, and a film called Maine Pyar Kiya. Now, what is he doing here? Am I a big fan? No, I'm not. Then why did I put this poster here? As you can see, Salman Bhai is wearing a pair of jeans. Now, during my youth, when I was studying in IIT, wearing a blue jeans was really a sign of Americanism, and Levi's was not available, so you actually had to plead with people who went abroad to get you a pair of Levi's. Now, today everyone wears jeans, and I think a lot of credit should go to Salman Bhai, who in that movie Maine Pyar Kiya, he wore a pair of jeans right through the film. In fact, that is the first big Hindi film in which the hero wears a pair of jeans and not the typical suit. Of course, I think he's not bare chested right through the film. I think he does wear a shirt in many scenes, but this was a pioneering, yeah, and no one paid him for it. No jeans manufacturer paid for this. It's amazing product placement, right? This was suiting, and we had numerous brands marketing saris, including Vimal. Vimal had saris, Garden saris, Bobby Dyeing had saris, uh, but saris seems to have gone away in terms of in advertising terms. Uh, Today, you don't see too many women wearing saris in ads, and even in corporate wear, it has gone down dramatically. As a result, two women in Bangalore said we want to bring back sari, and they created this concept of the 100 sari pack. They said every 3 days we're going to wear a sari and take photographs and post it on Insta and YouTube and Twitter, and we're going to make. But that didn't happen. But another brand actually latched on to a new phenomenon happening in India. We talk of socio-cultural truths, right? And one of the things which India has started seeing over the last 15, 20 years is what I call the Bollywoodization of our weddings. Weddings are no longer one day affair, they are 3, 4 events. And one brand, one company sitting in uh, Kolkata spotted the opportunity, and they launched this brand called Manyavar, and Manyavar became uh, a huge brand. I think its market cap is whatever. I think it's valued at about 3,000 or 4,000 crores. They spotted an opportunity. So Indian clothing has changed, and brands have reflected this clothing. And now let's come to food. How has food habits changed in India? And you know, biscuits are the product which have kind of penetrated across. Biscuits are not native to India. Food habits are the most difficult to change. Uh, Dalda, as we saw earlier, was a brand launched by Lever Brothers, and they had to struggle very hard to sell it. Those days there was no mass media. They actually had demonstrations, outside street corners to show people how puri can be made with dalda. Uh, Biscuits today are ubiquitous. Whichever part of the country you go, you can get biscuits, and biscuits are not native to a country. And the brand which I think had great advertising for biscuits, and I'll show one ad which I really like. Um, it's a fun ad.
अरे ओ कालिया कहां से मेरे लिए क्या ला रहे ये बिस्किट लाया सरदार अरे ओ सामा ये देखा तूने बच गया मैंने 1000 बार कहा कि मुझे असली चीज चाहिए असली चीज समझे अब आएगा मजा Britannia Glucose Day. गांव का हर बच्चा जानता है कि गब्बर की असली पसंद क्या है, असली चीज समझे।
असली ग्लूकोज से भरपूर ब्रिटानिया ग्लूकोज डी, ज्यादा स्वाद ज्यादा शक्ति।
I think this was really terrific advertising, and people say that the brand was not successful. And was the brand not successful because a villain was modeling for it? I don't think so. I think Gabbar Singh was a very much loved villain. The brand was not successful because the brand name was too much of a mouthful. Britannia Glucose D. Who will remember that? The brand which actually went and took this biscuit phenomenon around the country was Parle G. Even Parle originally was not called Parle G, it was called Parle Gluco, and they had numerous imitators. And they then had to change the name to Parle G. And today, Parle G is the largest cookie brand in the world. An amazing success. They made in, I think, 40 plus plants around the country. Another brand which managed to capture this brilliantly was Maggie. Again, noodles are not native to most of India, but they managed to tap this, which is, I believe, food marketing, uh, pricing, acceptable taste, ubiquitous availability, and very sharp positioning. Maggie was very sharply positioned for to be given to children as a snack when they come back from school. So, mummy, I'm back from school, I'm hungry, and the mom says, 2 minutes. Minuto mein taiyar, khane mein mazedar. Ready in minutes, very tasty to eat. Amazing success. It went off the market recently for a problem. They've come back and they bounced back. And right now, during the lockdown, the sale of all these products have gone through the roof. So there is this whole theory which Santosh Desai writes about, that there is this what is called the thali problem. The middle of the thali is very difficult to enter. Middle of the thali means the real curries and the chapatis, very difficult to enter. Outside of the thali, which is pickles and papads, are easy to convert. But I think the pandemic has opened up the middle of the thali. And I see going forward in the next 5 years, Indian homes are going to get more and more used to eating ready to eat and ready to cook products. A dramatic change I expect is going to happen, and what has not happened in the last 30 years may happen in the next 3 years. On, what is the role of brands? Irving Goffman, professor at University of California, Berkeley, wrote a book called Gender Advertisement. He analyzed hundreds of ads in America, and he said most ads present hyper ritualized roles. Men are seen as big, women are seen as thin, small, men are standing, women are sitting. But I think if you looked at some of these ads which we saw of Airtel, of Bonvita, of Naukri, we are seeing brands doing new visualizing. We are visualizing new roles between husband and wife, between mother and child, and this is going to continue to grow. And if you remember the Prestige pressure cooker ad where the woman goes to the shop, doesn't even open her mouth, but a brand called Surf for the first time showed a woman actually arguing with a male shopkeeper, which is kind of not something done in the Indian society, but that's happened, and that got reflected in an ad in a TV serial called Rajni. And of course, we had a brand called Ariel, which has done some outstanding work on sharing the load, how men have to learn how to use a washing machine, and that's become a global case study. And brands have started embracing causes, and they've also run into trouble because they embraced causes in the recent past. But I think let me play this one ad. I think how are we for time, Prasad?
Sir, so we should be done in the next 10 minutes so that you can have two questions or so.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let me quickly go through. Let me play that ad because it's a fun ad. In fact, this ad ran on TV 6, 7 years ago, and very, very bold advertising. I don't know in today's mood whether this will be accepted the way it was accepted then. And they've done some outstanding work for Fast Track. And of course, if Indian economy is expected to grow at 7%, 7.5%, and I think advertising will have to grow even faster because huge sectors of Indian society is still using generic products, and they need to start using branded products. But people keep telling me, digital revolution is coming and everything is going to change. consumers are going to change, how they buy will change, what they'll buy will change, branding will change, everything will change. And digital marketing experts show this complicated chart which says this is the new world of marketing: marketing automation, retention, organic acquisition, paid acquisition, analytics, this, that. But there's an old saying which says more things change, more they are the same. If we are going to be in marketing, if we are going to be in brand marketing, one thing we need to remember is that our job is to understand the customer. Our job, the only purpose of a business, as Peter Drucker said, is to create and keep a customer. So as things change, more and more things change, more and more things are going to be the same. So the consumer is changing, you need to keep changing in pace with the consumer. And let me end with a few fun stuff. And this is Ogden Nayash, who says, I think I shall never see a billboard as lovely as a tree. Perhaps unless the billboard falls, I'll never see a tree at all. Or the anonymous poem which says that goldfish lays 10,000 eggs, a homely hen lays one. The codfish never cackles, tell you what she's done. So we scorn the codfish while the humble hen we prize. It only goes to show you that it pays to advertise, right? And happy to report that my book was included as the 6 books to read during the lockdown by Harish Bhatt, brand custodian Tata. And that's my talk, but I have a short commercial break at the end with the permission of Prasad. So I have a new book out called Spring, Bouncing Back from Rejection. So I want the audience to make a note of it. And of course, this is my 10th book. There are 10 books. You can follow me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. So thank you very much for your patient listening. And I think I've gone 6 minutes beyond my time. I apologize for that. My apologies. And Prasad, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ambi. I think you took us right from the memory lanes of the old ads to the new ads and how it changed the complete universe of marketing. I have taken a lot in terms of marketing as such. Yeah, so we can take around 2 questions before we wrap it up. And there is a one common theme which has emerged, that how do brands try to address the generation gap when they have been in the society for a long time? So through ads, or how do they make it more effective in terms of stories?
Let me stop share. Okay, and
Yeah.
can all be big. Yeah. I'm not sure what was the question.
So the question was in terms of a brand who which has been there throughout the generations, and how do they convey their brand more effectively, keeping in mind that there is a generation gap and there is a lot of things changing across the generations.
Okay, very good question. So a brand has to keep track of how society is changing. So let me give an example of the brand which I've worked for many years, 25 years, called Santur. Santur's initial advertising was all about, in a wedding, someone mistakes this girl to be young girl, and let's get this girl married to Raju, and her kid comes and says, "Mommy," and that was the first narrative. But that worked for some time, it stopped working. Then we changed the narrative. It was no longer wedding. She was in an aerobics class. She was learning aerobics, and then she was being mistaken for a college student, and then she turns out to be a mom. The next stage, she became a dress designer. Again, she's mistaken to a college student being a dress designer. No, she's a mom, and then she becomes a choreographer. She starts training film stars, and the film star mistakes her, saying, "Oh, you're so young," and then she's a mom, right? So if you look at 25 years of Santur advertising, we've tried to capture the changes in society. You have to do that. Very often what happens is the brand says that, look, if I change, my old customer will go away. You got to take that decision and say, if my old customer goes away, it doesn't matter. My new customers will be much more in number than my old customer. A lot of brands get caught in this warp. Oh, my old customer will go away, so I need to keep serving the same shadi, the same wedding, the same shanai. You're going to get stuck. When you get stuck, you lost the game.
Right. and it actually proves from the fact that brands do get recognized during the course of time. Yeah, we have one more question. I think we can accommodate that. There's a question about subliminal messaging. So how much should an advertising be giving importance to subliminal messaging, or those kind of communications?
I think the question, Prasad, is coming from there was a lot of negative publicity around advertising based on an experiment which Ernest Jigscher did in America.
Yes.
That during a movie, they flashed these four frames of Coca-Cola, and when the movie got over, a lot of people went and had Coke. Compared to a movie screening where they did not show the Coke picture. I think Dean Deepak Jain will know about this experiment. Later, it was misproved. They said no, it was not. It was not a valid result, and it was misproved. So, subliminal advertising, that kind of advertising, I'm not sure is legal, and that sort of advertising will not work. But I think a new type of advertising is going to emerge, which is product placements inside movies. We've had that in for a long time, right? Shah Rukh Khan will be using a Nokia phone, and Hrithik Roshan will be drinking Nescafe. So brands are placed inside a movie. Now that I don't think is done surreptitiously. It's very open, right? It's very open. Even a James Bond movie, you know that he's going to have Stolishnia vodka, or he's going to drive an Aston Martin. It's all product is placed. And I feel going forward in the next 10 years' time, that's going to become bigger and bigger. If today a lot of advertising in India and across the world, a lot of advertising is through appointment viewing, that you have an appointment to watch this program, and then my ad comes in that appointment and you see it. But if this appointment viewing is going to go away, you're going to have non-linear TV viewing, then you'll have to catch the consumer the way the consumer is, which means you may have to create your own content, what we call advertiser funded programming. I'm told already a lot of that is happening in OTT platforms. People are putting up full-length program, 6-part series launched by brands on things. So that's going to happen, and brands are going to come into the series, whether it's a vodka, whether it is a soap, whether it is a shampoo, whether it is a vitamin tablet. They're all going to come into content. I don't think that is deception. It's obvious. That's open, and consumer will figure it out. Yeah, thanks.
So I would like to conclude this session by saying thanks to Dr. Ambi, and it was the session covered a lot of facts, a lot of myths, a lot of a journey of advertising from the time you have been, from the time we are seeing it now. And I think the whole session gave us a lot of insight into how we should consciously market in this era. Also, I think I would like to thank Dr. Deepak Jain for taking out time and attending this masterclass. Thank you, Dr. Padak. Thank you, Prerna, and thank you all the attendees for making it to this. Making it to this masterclass. To end, we have an upcoming masterclass which will be based on design of visualization, and it will be taken up by Dr. Manish Agarwala. If more information would be posted out in the website, which is www.gievents.in, and we would keep you updated on your inbox. Thank you and have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.